Hello everyone, thanks for listening in on this video about preparing and applying for graduate programs in science and engineering. Hopefully by the end of this video you'll learn several ways in which you can increase your chances of getting into the school of your dreams. So let's go ahead and get started. So first off, I'll let you know just a little bit about myself. I'm originally from a rural community in the southern United States. I come from a town where not many people go to college after high school, and so that was a barrier I had to overcome early on. I then went to the University of Arkansas and received my BS in civil engineering, followed by an MPhil in engineering for sustainable development from the University of Cambridge as a Gates Cambridge Scholar. Now I'm at Yale University working on my MS and PhD in environmental engineering. So those are my educational experiences, but my real interests are in international water sanitation and hygiene, as well as the water energy nexus. So I spent one summer during my undergrad working on developing ceramic water filters for use in villages in South Africa, shown in the pictures in the left and center of the screen there. I've also had work affiliated in Ethiopia, Mozambique, Bangladesh, and Pakistan. My interest in the water energy nexus, and specifically how we can use membrane technologies to ensure that we have adequate water supplies, but also to meet human needs while not exacerbating climate change. I spend a lot of my time in, or I currently spend a lot of my time in a research lab and writing papers now as a PhD student, and I think I've found something that I really enjoy doing, and I hope that you can do the same. So now that you know a little bit about me, our agenda for the remainder of this session includes talking about how you can go about choosing your college and degree program. We'll answer questions like why engineering school, or what should you think through when choosing a school and a degree program. We'll also talk about how to prepare for grad school, both as an underclassman, as someone in your first 1 or 2 years of college, as well as an upperclassman. And finally, we'll talk about setting yourself apart in your application. So how you can frame your own personal experiences in your application to make yourself stand out compared to other applicants. So if you've made it this far in the discussion, you must have some degree of interest in science and engineering. Maybe you've already decided, or maybe you're interested but still unsure if that's the path you want to take. So I'm here to tell you that science and engineering is a great degree choice, and that's because you can make a real impact in the lives of other people. You can make a difference in the world by addressing some of the biggest engineering challenges of our time, such as working to make renewable energy affordable, to sequester carbon from the atmosphere and mitigate the effects of climate change, to restore and improve urban infrastructure in our cities, to engineer better medicines, or reverse engineer the brain. These are exciting, difficult challenges that are excite me, and I hope they excite you as well. Engineering school also gives you a broad set of skills that can be applied to many other fields. For instance, if you decide to go to engineering school, then you decide you want to go into business, you've already developed many skills in areas that are very useful in areas of business. Some of these skills include things like project planning and time management, problem-solving skills, teamwork and communication, attention to detail, and data processing skills. Now, my comment about business degrees isn't to downplay the benefit of getting a business degree, but you cannot go to business school and then become an engineer, but you can go to engineering school and then go into business. And so you have a broad set of skills that are very useful in both engineering and other areas of life. So once you decide on a degree or what you want to study, then you have to decide also what school you want to attend. Now, obviously, you need to consider some generic criteria such as acceptance rate or the cost of the school reputation, geographic location. But on top of that, there are some other more specific things you should consider, such as is the program you're considering or the school you're considering, is it more competitive or collaborative? A healthy amount of competition and collaboration is an important aspect of an academic institution. Secondly, you should consider whether there are adequate resources. If you're going to be in a laboratory, you need to consider if there are adequate lab resources so that you can do the research that you want. Also consider funding. Is there funding for things like conferences? Or as a master's or PhD student, will you be paid or do you have to fund yourself? The best way, from my experience, to answer these questions is to ask people that have gone to a school before you. If you look at the Chinese proverb I have listed here, to know the road ahead, ask those coming back. And I really do think that's the best way to know if a school is right for you, is if you can talk to people that have gone to that school or reach out to students that are there currently and see what their experience has been. If you're considering US and UK degrees, you may be curious about the differences between the two. So I've listed out some of those differences here. These are very general and there are exceptions, of course, but from my experience, I've seen that US programs are typically longer in master's and PhD programs, where UK degrees are typically shorter. In the US, PhD can be 5 years or more. In the UK, PhDs are typically around 3. The US can also be more expensive if you end up paying for school. This is not always true, but the UK can sometimes be cheaper. There's also a difference in the degree of autonomy that you have in the US and the UK. I found that in the US you have more coursework and lectures that you must attend. You also receive more guidance from your research supervisor, and so the learning you're receiving is more assisted. Where in the UK, you're more on your own. You take less courses, or fewer courses, excuse me. You also have less research guidance, and your learning is more self-directed. And naturally, because the programs are longer in the US, you often have more opportunity for more publications, where in the UK, just by nature of the amount of time that you spend there, you don't have as much opportunity for publications. So in addition to finding the right school, you also need to find the right program. When choosing a program, you need to consider what you want to get out of it. And while this varies from person to person, I think most of us can agree that you are going to school because you want to get good training, and then you want to be able to land the job that you want after your program's finished. So the best programs will help you reach these goals. Now, there are obviously factors to help you reach those goals, but I've listed a few things that you can do to determine if a program is right for you. So first, take a look at university websites to see what course options there are. Also see what student organizations are available. You want to make sure that your classes and extracurricular activities are interesting but also beneficial to you. Also take a look at if your program is research-based or project-based, particularly for master's degrees. In a project-based master's, you'll take more classes and do less research, where in a research-based master's, you'll take fewer classes and do more research, and really depends on what you want to end up doing afterwards. That'll dictate what sort of program you look for. Also talk to former students, and this goes along with the advice that I gave previously. that if you can talk to former or current students, that'll give you the best idea as to if you'll enjoy that experience as well. See if former students were able to get the jobs that they wanted. Sometimes you can find these people on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a really great resource for that. You can also talk to current students via email. Oftentimes, students have their email posted on research group websites that are maintained by professors themselves. In graduate programs, it's also really important to have the right fit of a supervisor. Your supervisor plays probably the most important role in your success. They're the one who trains you in your research and directs you. So don't underestimate the importance of having a good advisor. But how do you choose a good advisor? Well, I've listed out two theoretical advisors here where neither is better than the other. They're just different, and you have to choose which you prefer. Advisor number one here is a newer faculty member, and therefore naturally has a smaller research group because this person's less established. Because the research group is smaller, their mentoring style can be more hands-on, and so you get more of assisted learning. This advisor may also put in longer hours because they're striving to get tenure at the university so they can have a stable long-term position. They may also have more innovative and interesting research ideas because this person just came out of their PhD. Where advisor number two, on the other hand, has been around a little longer and may have a longer research group. And because of having a larger research group, they don't have as much time to give to each individual student, and so their advising strategy is more hands-off. Because this person is a bit older and has, perhaps may have tenure, they may have a bit more work-life balance and put in fewer hours, and therefore expect you to put in fewer hours as well. And naturally, because this person's been around and in academia for a while, they have more established research, but may have fewer, exciting research ideas because they've already exhausted those ideas in the last 30 years of their career. So these are some pros and cons, or at least things to think about when choosing an advisor. And ultimately, there's no right or wrong answer. You just have to choose what you prefer. So when it comes time to make a decision, ultimately you should make the decision based on your values. And these values go into the decision-making process in choosing the best school, and whether it be in the UK or US or elsewhere, these are some things you have to consider. For me, the decision was based on some of the values you see listed here. That is, whether the supervisor provides opportunity, whether I think I'll be able to get the job I want, and to succeed as a graduate student working with my supervisor. Also, based on my general interest in the research. Did I fit into the graduate student community at each school that I visited? Did I find the research challenging? And was I challenged by the other students? Did I enjoy the location of the school, and was I a good cultural fit for the school? And then did former students get the placement that they want in, whether it be industry jobs or academic jobs? These are some of the things that I considered when choosing a graduate school, and ultimately chose Yale after considering all of these different criteria. So I encourage you to do the same. Really reflect on your values and determine what's most important for you in choosing a program and a school. Now, there can be a lot of anxiety when it comes to choosing a major and a career. So if you feel unsure, that's okay, because everyone feels these sorts of feelings, even if they don't show it. So, but you still have to make a decision. And so I have a few more tips for you if you're still uncertain at this point. First of all, don't choose just based on a gut feeling. Really think these things through and consider some of these criteria that I have listed here, like impact, for example. Can you have the impact that you want to have in the world? If you work in this particular field and go to this particular school, will that set you up well to have that sort of impact that you want? Also consider personal fit. Do your natural abilities align with this career option that you're choosing? Also consider career capital. So will taking this particular step jumpstart your career in the way that you want? Will you enjoy the job or degree program or whatever it is you're deciding on? And then will choosing, engineering or a particular school open or expose you to new ideas and careers that you wouldn't have otherwise, also known as exploration value. These are just things from a resource called 80,000 Hours. Also talk to academic advisors and mentors. These people have gone through these same processes before you and have gone through these same decisions. And generally, they're more than happy to help. So I encourage you to reach out to them, tell them that these are decisions you're trying to make, and they can provide some good guidance for you as well. Ultimately, you cannot ever be sure about a decision until you just take a leap of faith and try it. But don't put too much pressure on yourself at the same time, because you can always make a change if you end up not liking it. If you're still having trouble deciding, I encourage you to check out this article here by 80,000 Hours. It's a career guide part 8, how to find the right career for you. I find this article very helpful in just thinking through this process and deciding how to move forward. Okay, so now moving on to preparing for graduate school. So for those who are still in their first 2 years of undergraduate, there are a few things you can be doing to help you prepare for science and engineering graduate school at this stage. The first thing you do is try to form a relationship with a professor. Like I said, these people have gone through this process before. All professors have been to graduate school, and so they're more than willing to give some advice and help you out along the process, because I'm sure they wish they would have had that as well. Also try to gain some research experience. The earlier you can do this, the better if you're considering going into a research-based master's degree or getting a PhD. Also go above and beyond your classes and try to read some journal papers in the field. Read things you find interesting. You'll learn so much more than just what your classes can teach you. And the earlier you can start doing this, the better, because in a sense, that is doing part of the research process. Also get involved with some engineering-related student organizations. You want to be a well-rounded individual and not someone who just makes good grades. You can also get involved with some policy or business-related organizations if you're interested in those avenues as well, and not just the design, but how those designs are implemented and how or what that means for policy as well. And I'd like to just emphasize again to not just make good grades, but overall, the most important thing is to learn, acquire new skills, be curious about new ideas, and for really frame your mindset as a learner as you prepare for graduate school. Some new skills that you can learn is, scientific writing, or learning to code, or learn a new language. This is a great time to just be learning as much as you can. For the upperclassmen that are listening here, you need to be a bit more strategic in how you're applying for graduate school, or preparing for graduate school, because time is short. So one thing you can be doing is trying to study abroad. I would encourage you to try to if you know where you want to go to graduate school, try to study abroad at that school. Admission can be much easier as a study abroad student, and it will help you get into that school as a graduate student later on. Excuse me. Secondly, utilize new skills you've acquired as an undergraduate through, maybe it'll be starting a nonprofit or starting a discussion group. And then be involved with leadership roles in student organizations if you are involved with student organizations at this time. Try to take some leadership roles, or if you're not involved with student organizations yet, just get involved and get started with that. Also, try to diversify your research experience if you already have some, or get into some research if you haven't done so yet. And then finally, attend conferences. This is a great opportunity to network with other people in the field, practice giving presentations. You can also talk to people about their research, and overall just get new ideas about the field and what you could possibly research in graduate school. Now, if you're really good, you may even get the opportunity to publish some of your research or receive an award for your academic achievements. But these are just some ideas to get you started thinking about these things. Okay, so here are two random individuals that were successful into getting into some of the best schools in the world for grad school. Now, don't be intimidated because these are some of the best of the best, but rather just let this be motivation for you to get more involved and to prepare for grad school. So the student on the left here directed a summer nanotechnology camp. Researched phosphate removal from lakes, was a teaching assistant, was the president of a student organization, and gave 5 conference presentations. Where the student on the right here designed community rainwater harvesting systems in Tanzania. Was a student ambassador for the College of Engineering and volunteered in the study abroad office and gave 4 conference presentations. Now, obviously, these are very exceptional undergraduates, so again, don't be intimidated, but use this as motivation, and you've got this, and we're here at Dyad to help you through it. Another element of preparing for grad school is taking the GRE exam, and you should try to be strategic about what you study in preparation for the exam. Obviously, you would want to be able to study everything if you could, but you can't always do that. So you should realize that the quantitative section is probably the most important for scientists and engineers. Make sure you can score highly in this area before spending exorbitant amounts of time in writing or the verbal sections. That doesn't mean the writing and verbal sections are unimportant, however. So I would just recommend taking full practice exams, and that's a great way to practice for the real thing. I did that several times to prepare. Also, use flashcards to learn the vocabulary. My best tip is to write essays with a friend that's also taking the exam. And then because you're writing on the same essay topic, you then can review each other's work, talk through what each person did well and what they could have done better, and improve in that way. So what do reviewers look for in applications? Well, they look for motivated, high-achieving students who have a clear direction in their career. These students typically have an ability and liking for research, especially if you're going into a research-based program. They have leadership and self-initiative and strong problem-solving abilities and grit and resilience. So how do you demonstrate these qualities in your application? And that's something that you really have to reflect on and brainstorm on before you can start thinking too hard about the logistical piece of your application. So one thing I encourage you to do is, if you have friends that have gotten into graduate school before, collect their CVs and personal statements just to see what was required to gain admission into these graduate schools. Look to see if these people had leadership experience in student organizations. And it's just a good example for you to go off of and inspire you a little bit. Okay, so setting your application apart. So your X factor is one or a few things that are unique about you that differentiate you from the other applicants. So this can be a hobby, an interest, a goal, past experience, or anything that's unique about you and makes you stand out. So I encourage you to start thinking about, what is your X factor? What can differentiate you from everyone else? And this is a hard question, I know, but really reflect on that and consider what is different about you. I think the most important part in your application is to be able to communicate and to communicate your goals and experiences effectively. Many scientists and engineers don't have the ability to communicate very well, and so this is an opportunity for you to stand out from everyone else. Particularly if you can communicate your story, your experiences in the form of a story, I find that to be a very effective way of writing a personal statement. So telling how you became interested in your field, telling what your goals are in your career and what motivates you. So start thinking about, what is your story and where have you been, where are you wanting to go in the future, and connecting those dots. So maybe even practice writing that down and connecting that story so that you can write that in your personal statement. So now I want to get into some more concrete examples of how to set yourself apart in your application. So what we do at DIAD is help you brainstorm and self-reflect to develop your story. We then help you outline your personal statement by going over the story of your interest in the field, your undergrad studies, or what you did in your undergraduate studies, and then your future plans beyond graduate school, and then really focusing in on why that research program is right for you. Excuse me. So DIAD mentors are here to help you during that process. So here is an example of writing from someone originally, or an example of someone who wrote a statement, and this statement was later reviewed by DIAD, and DIAD helped this person brainstorm and improve their personal statement. So this is what the student wrote originally. Since I was a sophomore student, I started to think what I really wanted to study and chose civil engineering as my major and master's period and prepared for that. I got my master's degree in structural engineering and continued to be a PhD candidate in engineering in College University since 2014. During 3 years of research period, I finally find what I would like to do in the future is not doing research, but doing management work in construction-related company. So while everything's true, the story here isn't very inspiring or noteworthy. And the red text isn't particularly insightful because it doesn't give good reasons about why this person wants to go to school at this university, but kind of describes it as a fallback option. So after working with DIAD, the student wrote, "When I heard my family was planning to build a new house, I felt excited because as a master's student in civil engineering, I had the responsibility to plan and design our home. However, I also had anxiety about the situation. I had just been offered my first internship in a design company, and so I had no previous experience in engineering design. I urgently started to learn design skills, and I went from not knowing where to begin to drafting a design model and construction drawing. We hired The construction group and amazingly transitioned from a blueprint to a real building. Once the project was complete, I felt a profound sense of accomplishment and an interest in continuing to manage construction projects. This experience formed the basis for me applying to study engineering management at the University of College. So this is an inspiring and clear story about why the student wanted to go into construction management and ultimately gained him admission into every school that he applied to. So here's another example from a personal statement where the student simply repeated things from his CV and did not really explain how those things prepared him for graduate school. So the student says, I believe it will be a great advantage to learn this major with engineering knowledge. I also have a work experience in this industry from designing to construction company. And engineering management is such an ideal major I'm looking for, which combines engineering and management together. Now, after revisions and support from Dyad, the student writes, several experiences helped me build a solid academic and professional knowledge of civil engineering, which will be an asset for me in studying engineering management. My internship experiences in a design company and construction company began to craft my abilities in structural design and construction management. I am interested in a master's degree in engineering management because it would build on my existing engineering skills and offer me exposure in international engineering management. So now, after revisions, brainstorming with Dyad, the student was able to be very specific about why he wanted to join this program, and it's clear here that the student had thoroughly thought through those reasons very carefully. So there are many STEM career opportunities that you can consider, especially, as I said before, you have a broad skill set that could be used in many different areas. So I cannot go into much detail here because there are so many opportunities, but just to briefly state a few, you can go into engineering consulting, whereas a civil engineer, for instance, you may design bridges or buildings. You can also become an academic or researcher. You can go into policy or work at a think tank and contribute intellectually to how water or other resources are managed by the government, for instance. You can go into things like finance or management consulting even. You can also go into teaching at a college or a secondary school. And ultimately, there's so much more that you could do that we're barely even scratching the surface. All right, to conclude the session, grad school in science and engineering is a great choice because it prepares you for many different careers. However, to get there, it's going to require some work, and it requires you to be able to communicate very effectively. But Dyad mentors can help guide you through that process. Even though it may be an uphill battle, Dyad is here to help. So thank you for listening in, and I hope you found this session useful. Thanks so much.